really good individual and team efforts. I mean, effort wasn't a question. Extremely disappointed just in the way that we played. Starts with me as the head coach. Way too many penalties, way too many self-inflicted mistakes. I have to do a better job, and know a lot of people, our players, our fans wanted this one, and for us to go out there and play like we did, just really disappointing.
Shane Beamer in his post-game press conference on Saturday as South Carolina falls to Mississippi 27-3. Felt like at times the game might not have been that close. Welcome aboard this edition of the Postgame Show. Alongside Elijah Campbell, I'm Jay Phillips. Our good friend David Cloninger will join us. Typically, we don't have guests on a Monday show other than you guys. Today, we're going to have David to lend some mid-season philosophical perspective. David had a really good write-up yesterday about this ball game, not the game report, but really sort of an assessment of where some things are around Carolina football. And I thought it was important once I read that to have David on. So we're going to do that in a bit. And let me go ahead and throw out the phone number, text number as well, of course, 803-404-6100 to call us or hit us up on the Firehouse Subs text line. This was an incredibly disappointing loss. There's no other way to put it, and that's obvious. I said on Twitter Saturday, stayed off of social media yesterday, but I think I said it on more than one occasion Saturday. And I'm not going to blame the entire loss on this, I assure you. There were other issues. But the failed fake punt, to me, loomed over this entire ball game. Shane said that it really put a pall over the first quarter. I would say it extended out. Here's primarily why. And to Shane's credit, he mentioned this multiple times in his post-game press conference. But I'm going to take it a couple of steps farther. There were what, Elijah, 3 minutes gone in the game at that point, give or take?
Not even. It was over 12 minutes still to go in the first quarter.
It's fourth and short. That kind of play is all about risk reward. No matter when you call it in a game. What's the reward there? A first down at your own 40, and again, around 12 minutes to play first quarter. Dare I say, big deal. Big deal. Subsequently, in the drive prior, you had made Mississippi. It was just one drive, but you made them not turn the ball over, but you made them punt the ball to you pretty quickly. And on the third down play, you thwarted Juice Wells around midfield. And Jackson Dart ended up on his back. That's what Mississippi was thinking about as the punt team came on and you were out on offense. They were thinking about ways to correct it, but that was what was in their head. On top of that, you had 70,000-ish screaming Gamecock fans in your corner. And with one failed fake punt that early in the game, you sucked the life right out of Williams-Brice Stadium. And it never really came back. Some moments here or there. Yay, go. But then a fumble on the next drive after you had done a couple of nice things, and it was gone. Not to return on this particular Saturday afternoon. And by halftime, saw the crowd, or lack thereof. You took the number one intangible advantage you have in your favor away for a potential first down at your own 40 with 12 minutes to go first quarter. Risk reward just doesn't even come close to matching up there. And so while there were other things, and that I'm going to get to, that to me, that will be, I promise you, I remember little things here. 2012 Georgia, a great win. I remember one thing. Ace dropped the ball. And he still scored. The loss at LSU when Marcus was playing. I don't know how he scored that touchdown. Carolina didn't win the game, but how did Marcus score? I remember little things about certain games here and there. When I think back on the Mississippi visit to Williams-Brice Stadium in October of 2024, I will think of one thing. A failed fake punt early that completely killed the environment at Williams-Brice Stadium, and it looked pretty electric. And again, you did the right thing in terms of making Ole Miss get frustrated right from the get-go. You had the crowd in your corner, and you took them away. Shane's admitted as much, and I know he wants it back. I saw it in his face, but man, loomed large all day. Beyond that, so many, once again, self-inflicted mistakes. Got a decent drive going. Get a first down on a third and medium, but you got the first down. Oh, offensive PI. Another momentum killer. After you're trying to claw your way back. You had an opportunity with getting the ball at the start of the third quarter to actually, at the end of the second, make this a game where you're only down a score. But once again, we see bad final minutes of the second quarter in that scenario end up playing into the hands of the other team. And with just a few seconds left, Mississippi scores their touchdown, and it's 24-3 going into the break. Ole Miss is good. Ole Miss is really good. But if you give them the momentum on the road, they're going to be even better. Shane's taken a lot of responsibility this weekend, both Saturday and last night in the teleconference, for a lot of the things that continue to plague this ball club. I'm going to borrow from my good friend Michael Haney at this point in the season. You are who you are. Why do these things keep happening? Why do you continue to make so many mistakes that you place upon yourself? Jackson Dart might have gotten you to jump a little bit on a couple of offside. All right. That's part of it. Shane mentioned that in postgame too. We worked on that, he said. Dylan Stewart, what are you doing, man? By then, maybe it didn't matter. I don't know. But what if it does one day? You can't do that. This defense definitely played well enough through the course of the ball game to give you a chance to win, and I feel badly for those guys. Again, Dylan made a couple of mistakes. Everybody's going to make some mistakes. It's still college football. NFL dudes make mistakes. It's life. It's sports. It happens. How you minimize their impact is the bigger thing, and right now it seems like every single thing South Carolina does wrong finds a way to smack them in the face. But when you keep doing it to yourself more than your opponent does it to you, you're not going to get out of your own way. But I think the defense played well enough, and I'd love to have seen, going back to the failed fake punt, let your future NFL punter put the ball somewhere inside the 20 and let that defense go to work again with the student section right there behind Jackson Dart screaming and saying a lot of nice things about him and his family. But you didn't. Instead, they got the ball, went right down. Can't put the defense in situations like that. Conversely, this offensive line just has to get better, and I don't know if it's going to this year. Elijah and I were talking this morning. There are 4-star recruits and even a 5-star recruit on that offensive line. This is not, you weren't going out and getting guys that were going to play in community college and decided to come to you instead. I don't know what's wrong. It's not all youth and inexperience anymore. They've got to find a way to get better. Do you let Sean Elliott have more say on that? You know, what he and Lonnie and Greg are doing? Is it too many cooks in the kitchen? I don't know. Nor will I pretend to know. What I see are results. And right now, they tell me that this team is still unable to run the ball effectively enough on a regular basis and allow its developing quarterback time to get better in real game situations. as I said, you are who you are by now. And lucky you get to go to what is already one of the most difficult places to play in all of college football. And you're going to get a team that has probably never felt as embarrassed as it does right now. And by that, of course, I mean Alabama is hosting you after being beaten by Vanderbilt. You're 3-touchdown underdog. I don't know what it would have been if Bama had won the game. If you want some kind of silver lining, the last couple of seasons, we have seen this team get better in the second half of the season, I mean. Last year, it wasn't enough. The year prior, got you to a pretty good bowl game. Can you do that again? Yes. Will you? Not if you keep doing crap like this. But you can't take yourself and your crowd out of a game and expect to just add that back in unless something magical were to happen along the way. And by then, Elijah, I think you would play directly into the hands of a tactician like Lane Kiffin. And basically the game was over.
Certainly. And look, here's the thing that's probably one of the more frustrating parts of the game is you had a chance to survive that nightmarish first quarter. It's what I refer to on Twitter during the game as your Murphy's Law quarter. Everything that could have possibly gone wrong for you, self-inflicted or not, happened. And you were down 14-0. Since that point, since the quarter flipped to quarter number 2, and throughout the rest of the game, you only got outscored 13-3. That should be, if you only give up 13 more points the rest of the game, that should be enough for you to at least be in the game in the fourth quarter. The second half of that football game was some of the most boring football you could possibly watch because Ole Miss basically just sat on it, and they dared you to put the ball in the end zone, and you couldn't do it. Another frustrating element. There's so many, and we might not even get to all the frustrating stuff throughout the 3-hour duration of this radio program, which says a lot. But offensively, you made a lot of strides from week 1 to week 4 going into a bye week where you're supposed to get healthy and build upon those things that you got better at, right? Lenore Sellers in the Old Dominion game was significantly different than the Lenore Sellers that played the first half of the LSU game before his injury and the 3 subsequent plays where he determined that they could not keep him back out on that field. You could say in that first half of that LSU game, there was a lot of growth that was made. He regressed. The offensive line, all the way up through the Akron game, you could tell that they were getting a little bit better in terms of run blocking and pass protection. They didn't just regress. They didn't just come back down to earth, which, I mean, still, it wasn't like they were going to win the Joe Moore Award by any stretch of the imagination, but they came back down to earth and broke through the ground to get below the ground because what happened on Saturday took you out of the game completely. Even if Lenoris was at his best, even if the receivers were at their best at getting open, you didn't have time to be able to develop some plays. The only reason Lenoris had more than 3 seconds to throw the ball wasn't because he got great protection, because he was scrambling for a lot of that game. And ultimately, your best offense was the pass game breaking down and Lenoris saying, screw it, I'm going to run and get a first down. The only drives you sustained the entire game were doing that. Now, running the ball, if you'd have told me going into the game, sack adjusted, you'd be picking up almost 5 yards a carry, I think you probably win that game without knowing anything else. You're at least in it in the last quarter. If you tell me that you get, that you run more plays than Ole Miss, you don't have more time possession, but you run more plays than they did, like Kentucky did, I think you have a really good chance of winning that game. That if Jackson Dart only gets 27 pass attempts, I think you have a really good shot at winning that game. That in the last 3 quarters, after the worst quarter of the year, you only gave up 13 points, and Ole Miss couldn't get a touchdown drive of more than 59 yards. I think you have a really good chance in the game. And the fact that you don't, and the fact that you still lost by 24 after all that, makes that one really tough to swallow.
803-404-6100. Your reaction. More from us. David Cloninger coming up. It's a Reaction Monday postgame show.
Look, folks, we're already a week into October, and before you know it, Thanksgiving's going to be coming up. Halloween's right around the corner. And then right after that, it's Christmas. It always feels like it's, when it's 2 months away that you have a lot of time to do things you want to do, but then you blink and then that time is, of course, gone. So if you have a weight loss goal that you'd like to reach by the holiday season, now would be a perfect time to reach out to my friends over at Columbia Secret for Weight Loss, Paul Grant and Shaylin, who do a fantastic job at helping so many people like myself achieve their weight loss goals, be able to do it in an efficient amount of time so you can reach that goal by the time we do get to the holiday season. Look, I reached my weight loss goal of 20 pounds in less than a month's time, and you can learn the secret of losing up to 1 pound of unhealthy fat per day and then start your own success story like myself. If that interests you, give them a call, 803-824-4210. Again, that's 803-824-4210, or hit them up at ColumbiaSecretForWeightLoss.com for your free consultation. Results may vary.
Minutes after 3 o'clock on this Monday afternoon. Welcome back into the postgame show. Jay and Elijah with you. Let's get into your thoughts. 803-404-6100. Before we do, and I'm not going to dwell on this story now, but I do want to tell you there is breaking news that happened as we were coming on the air. We were in the opening monologue. Judge Claudia Wilkin, this came down right at 3 from the AP. Judge Claudia Wilkin did today in her courtroom grant preliminary approval to the terms of the House versus NCAA settlement and a couple of other cases that were tied into it. Hubbard versus NCAA, Carter versus NCAA. Those three all merged into one settlement. Interestingly enough, according to this, the final hearing, with a lot of hurdles to clear in between, the final hearing is scheduled for April 7th next spring. That is a Monday, Elijah Campbell. That night, the NCAA men's basketball championship game.
Super fitting.
So, just coincidence? Probably. But we'll talk more about some of the details in a bit. But I did want to put that out that broke quite literally as we were coming on the air today. Before I get to Drew on the phone, Justin hit us on Twitter. I mentally checked out after that fake punt, reeked of unnecessary desperation. We have more thoughts on that. I know Elijah's got a couple of takes he wants to provide as well. But Drew is going to lead off today on the phone lines. Hey, Drew, welcome in.
Hey, guys, a little pressure. I've never batted lead off in any sport
All right.
or anything.
There you go.
But,
History is being made.
There you go. First, I'm going to be subjective. You know, what was more painful was after sitting there all day, I never leave games early, get home and get some food, and then I see Vanderbilt hung 40 on Alabama. Arkansas beats Tennessee. And this is purely subjective, but I know we're better in both those teams and programs, yet they can pull the upsets, one of them being, you know, just massive upset. So that's my point, being subjective. We are better than those teams, at least I hope we are. Now, factual. There's some stats I pulled up here. Bear with me, I got to get to them. But this tells you the whole story. You know, I know stats you can do with what you want to, but we lead college football in sacks allowed at 22. I think we gave up 6 to Ole Miss on Saturday, so we played 5 games, correct?
Yes.
That's basically 4 sacks a game. Mm-hmm. We also lead the nation in tackles allowed for loss at 46. So that's over 9 a game. I think we had 10 against Ole Miss, and we lead the SEC in penalties. You know, I know people are pointing at Dowlock and Shane, this and that coach, this, that, and the other. I mean, really, to me, you know, some stats are meaningless, but those 3 right there tell the whole picture. And until those change, I don't really care what O-line does or Dow does or this, that, and the other. The one that's most alarming against Kentucky, that was a big stat too, tackles for loss and sacks. Yet we won that game, so everyone kind of forgot about it and has kind of glossed over it. Those stats have been there in all 5 games. Old Dominion, they were there. And that hasn't cleaned up. So I don't like, you know, your friend Haney said, we are what we are. And if those numbers continue, we might get 5 wins. I'm not trying to say throw in the towel. I'm going to Alabama. I've had the trip booked for a while. So I guess I have to find something else to do besides, you know, for fun besides watch the game. I don't know.
Well, the good news is the game kicks at 11 o'clock local time, so you can enjoy some food or fun or just stroll around and enjoy the history of what Bear Bryant built over there and things like that.
But I'll hang up and listen to y'all. The only good news of Saturday is, and the rest of the fall is, Lady G's will be playing sooner than later in November.
Soon. Yeah, David made a mention of that. Well, Drew, I'll tell you this, man. You slapped a leadoff double into the gap, so you've got the team.
That was strong.
You got the team set up the rest of the way, so well done, sir. He nailed it. He nailed it. The stuff that you have some level of control over, and I realize if you're playing a superior defense, you're going to give up some sacks and tackles for loss. But have you played a superior defense to that level? How much of it is just on your inability to get some of those things done? He makes a great point, too. I know, Elijah, I know you and I came back after the Kentucky game going, listen, y'all, yeah, they won rather comfortably, but there were 12 tackles for loss. You gave up more tackles for loss than you got. I think Carolina got 11 and gave up 12.
That was the game. Their average third down distance was 3rd and 12.
3rd and 12, and you won the game. You were very dominant when you needed to be.
Made 3 big plays offensively.
Yeah, and Drew's right. It just kind of gets glossed over in sports when you win, because winning cures everything in sports. We talk about that a lot. Ugly wins better than a pretty loss. Amen, brother. Always will be, too.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean the ugly goes away because you won. and the ugly is still there. Yeah, Drew, 41 penalties for 376 yards. That's South Carolina this season. So that's a shade over 8 penalties per game and around 70-something yards per game.
The frustrating part might be that, especially on defense, you're incredibly experienced. Mm-hmm. You do start a true freshman, Dylan Stewart, who did a true freshman mistake with
twice.
Yeah, twice. Which still, by October.
First time's a mistake. Second time, dude.
Yeah. And at this point, it's October now. You're not a true freshman anymore.
No.
And on offense, a lot of the transfer portal pieces you brought in were guys who have played a lot of college football, especially on the offensive line. Penalties are one of those things. You're not the youngest team in the SEC. Yes, you do start some freshmen at key positions, but this has to be weaned out by now. You still can't have the penalties you did on Saturday for the rest of the year from guys who absolutely know better.
And you made a good point earlier, and Shane said it in postgame, and I know I was harsh on the offensive line in my opening monologue, and I'll continue to say that they've got to get a lot better. But you mentioned the sack-adjusted run total, but it's still not effective enough in allowing you to do more of what you want to do offensively. And to one of the points Drew made, because a lot of you out there, and I get it, a lot of you say this is on Dowell Loggins' play calling. And I understand where you're coming from to a degree.
Yeah.
But if you can't execute the play to a point you made, Elijah, because within 2 seconds, your offensive line has been blown off the ball and your quarterback is running around trying to make something happen, then the best play caller, again, the ghost of Bill Walsh, will have his playbook thrown out the window if there's no good offensive line.
Mm-hmm.
So, I get, and you might say, well, then they've got to find plays that allow for that. And on that note, I wouldn't technically disagree. This may go back to the conversations that Shane had a couple of seasons ago with Marcus Satterfield, when it was like, Marcus, seriously, man, quit trying all these other plays that aren't working anymore. I want you to narrow the scope down to the ones that we can run. And it did make a difference. Can you do that again? I don't know.
One thing that's unacceptable, though, is having Lenoris pressured on 45% of his dropbacks. 45, almost half are considered pressures in that game. Given that number, would you like to take a wild guess at how many times Ole Miss actually blitzed, brought more than 4 people to rush the passer?
Oh, boy. The way you're asking it tells me that the number is low.
25.
Oh, no.
That will lose you every single game you play.
Yeah.
It's not like Ole Miss and Pete Golding, who's a defensive coordinator, came in with all these exotic blitz packages and all this crazy stuff designed to trick you. They didn't. They just brought 4. And they blew up your offense from the beginning. You're not winning any games like that, especially when you have to go to Alabama this week.
803-404-6100. More calls and texts as the postgame show rolls on. Integrated Media has long been Columbia's leader in today's technology for your home and business. Love what these guys have done at my house. TVs from Sony and Samsung, amazing surround sound systems, even Sonos wireless speakers. You can pick them up and move them, and man, they sound awesome too. Got a set of those. Wi-Fi that works everywhere. Call Integrated Media at 803-948-8327. Set up a time for our guy Dave to come out to your home or business, talk with you about your wants and needs. You ready to cut the cord? They can help you with that. Want one of those beautiful Samsung frame TVs? Looks like museum quality art when it's not turned on to your favorite game or show. They can do that for you too. Whatever you want in a home theater system, Integrated Media is ready to make it happen. And with no interest financing available, it's more affordable than ever. See their work on Facebook and Instagram. Then call 803-948-8327 to schedule an appointment. One room, whole house, outdoors, Wi-Fi that works everywhere. Feel like you're there when you call my good friends at Integrated Media. We are reacting to South Carolina's very disappointing 27-3 loss to Mississippi on Saturday afternoon. Gamecocks dropped to 3-2 overall, 1-2 in conference play, heading to Tuscaloosa this weekend. And by now, all of you know that Alabama fell 40-35 in Nashville on Saturday night. First time the Tide have lost to Vanderbilt in 40 years. Vanderbilt's first ever win over the number one team in the country. So congratulations to Clark Lee, Diego Pavia, and the crew. And now South Carolina gets an angry, embarrassed, humbled Alabama in their place. Gamecocks opened as 22.5-point underdogs. As it stands, the bettors say, no, Carolina will cover that.
The Sharps love a cover there.
It's now 21.5 since the opening line was released yesterday.
I don't think they're going to take any money line bets on South Carolina, but I think they maybe feel a little better about covering that.
A lot to clean up on that one. We've gotten a few phone calls in. I want to be fair to those of you, and there's a lot of you that are texting into us. Elijah is mining through the Firehouse Subs text line. What you got?
That's right. One that I like here from a nameless texter says, because we're talking about the fake punt in that first segment, you attributed
large
that to being the real gut punch. This nameless texter said, I think the fumble did it. We're moving the ball after the Ole Miss score, and we take our starting QB out and fumbled. I actually do think that might have been the bigger gut punch because you finally started to move the ball. If you look at just the drives throughout the game, there weren't a lot of times that you were driving the ball really well. Before the fumble, including the fumble, the plays were 3 for 34 yards. You picked up, you were starting to move the ball a little bit. You got into Ole Miss territory. If you even get a field goal right there and it becomes 7-3, it's not as daunting, right? But then they took that fumble and they marched right down the field and scored. The two touchdowns, what really killed you is the 2 touchdowns that Ole Miss scored in the first quarter to build that cushion. Neither of those drives had to travel 60 yards.
Right.
I think that's what absolutely killed you. But you finally were able to run the ball because they run the ball really well, right? Oscar Attaway took the first 3 or 4 carries or whatever, that drive, and moved the chains. And then you get into Ole Miss territory, and you trust someone like Robbie Ashford, which I'm not opposed to. I don't mind Robbie Ashford being in the game for a play like that. Yeah. And if anything, I advocated for it because of how well he played against Akron, specifically with how well he ran the ball. But Robbie Ashford, as we have documented plenty of times on this show, has played a lot of college football. You should be able to execute a read option like that. He pulled the ball out of the belly of Rocket Sanders, which I'm fine with keeping because there was a gap for him to run up the middle. But you got to hold on to that football. You've played. This isn't like, this is your 3rd game in college football and you have a hard time just executing those read option plays. You're old enough and you've played enough football to execute that read option play. That ball should not be on the ground. And it is very inexcusable for that ball to end up on the ground, Ole Miss to get it, and then score again. And at that point, you're staring down the barrel of a 2-touchdown deficit. And to me, that was really when things kind of went sideways too. I don't disagree,
and that's why I asked you. I'm not going to change my stance necessarily because of it. But I said, am I making too much of the failed fake punt? And I just look at it in a more existential kind of way, I suppose, especially that the crowd, even if you were moving the ball, look, if you had scored there, certainly if you could have made it 7-all, then at least you begin to build it back. But when you have already, let's put it this way. I'm gonna use the analogy I gave Elijah, and I told him I was going to do this, and this might be the time for it, okay? And y'all just bear with me here, and I'm not trying to make anybody laugh, but I am trying to add levity to the moment. I told Elijah during the game, this is like when you're in your own backyard, not somewhere else, not in a park. You're in your own backyard, and you step in a pile of dog crap that you knew the area where your dog had gone. And for whatever reason, you just weren't paying attention, and you stepped right smack in it. You could have avoided that. You didn't need to walk around that part of the yard, but you did.
Probably scrolling on your phone.
And then you go and you like try to rub it off outside, right? And you get most of it, and maybe there's a mat out there. But there's just enough when you walk back in the house that remains in the tread of your shoe. And it's just there all day. And you get that olfactory thing going, and it's just there all day.
Your regret simmers.
Yeah. And you're like, man, I know I can still go have a meal. I know I could still go do things, but God, I can't believe this morning that I stepped right in that. I knew right where it was, too. Why did I go out there and step in it? And you may say, well, Jay, you could clean your shoes off or take them off and leave them outside. Yeah, I get it. You see the point I'm making. There's that time when it's just like, didn't I get all that off my shoe? No, you didn't. And for the rest of the day, it's just there. And that's what I think that failed fake punt did. It took the life out of that crowd. That crowd was ready to be energized again to support that defense. Let Kai Kroger pin him down. Again, I don't care if the ball goes. Maybe Kai kicks it into the bleeping student section and they get the ball at the 20. I don't care. Like you said, the first two drives didn't have to go 60 yards. At least make them go the 80.
And with the way your defense played that first possession, Ole Miss went 3 and out and had a combined -3 yards.
Right. That's what I'm saying. You had Juice Wells frustrated because they tried to hit him on the third down play. And on that same play, Jackson Dart ended the play on his back.
Kyle Kennard and Tonka Hemingway hit him at the same time. He got drilled as he threw that ball.
That's what was in their head. You don't need to give them any life. Make them go do that again. Make them run that gauntlet. But, yeah, the fumble at that point, what life there might have been, that was it.
Are you ready for the worst part of that fake punt? I told you this is going to make you feel even worse.
You did, and I don't know what this is, but I'm braced. Let's go.
All right, so I went back and watched, and I noticed that South Carolina, the direct snap went to Maurice Brown.
Mm-hmm.
He is one man. Mm-hmm. He had 5 blockers ahead of him. Mm-hmm. Ole Miss had 6 players that were rushing the punter or bringing pressure on the punt itself, which means you get a hat on a hat. Maurice Brown has to make one guy miss to get 1 yard. In theory, maybe it doesn't sound too bad, assuming all 5 guys can maintain their blocking assignment. But then I looked at who was blocking who on the play, something that, as a coach, you can notice before the snap is made. So the blockers on the line of scrimmage for South Carolina: Colin Bryant, 6'3", 231 pounds. Brady Hunt, 6'5", 253 pounds. Hunter Rogers, 6'1", 206. It looks like. I can't read my handwriting, but it's over 200 pounds. Obviously not like an offensive lineman size. Ronnie Porter, 6'1", 244. King Demarion Ford, 6'1", 219. Would you like to know who Ole Miss had on the other side of the line of scrimmage, Jay Phillips? I know it's a lot of numbers that I read at you, but you know the body types, you know the players.
Yeah, I'm just going to say now it's a bunch of big ones.
Jared Ivey, 6'6", 285. J.J. Pegues, 6'2", 325. Walter Nolan, 6'3", 305. Or 20. That's 205? He ain't 205. I must have wrote that down wrong. Chris Paul, 6'1". Not that Chris Paul.
Yeah, not that Chris Paul.
Linebacker Chris Paul, 6'1", 235. Kari Coleman, 6'1", 220. T.J. Daughtery, 6'1", 225. You had 3 large defensive linemen, defensive ends being covered, being blocked by tight ends and special teams players. I don't care if they got the heart of champions, man. Right. I really don't.
Right.
You're not winning that battle. And when you watch the replay, poor Brady Hunt trying to guard J.J. Pegues was the biggest mismatch you could have possibly imagined. Just go back and watch the play and see how many black helmets start going up and then get pushed back. Yeah. And Maurice Brown runs straight in to J.J. Pegues. Ultimately, that play came down to Brady Hunt having to guard. Brady Hunt at 6'5", 253, having to block 6'2", 325 J.J. Pegues on one side, as well as poor Colin Bryant at 6'3", 231, having to block Jared Ivey at 6'6", 285. You're giving up a lot of pounds there, man. And I'm not talking about Columbia's secret for weight loss. You're giving up a lot of size and again, a lot of weight, and you ran straight into that wall.
And again, for a first down at your own 40, 3 minutes into the game, that was the reward. Again, it just cast a pall over the game that I think never went away. 803-404-6100 is the postgame show. Welcome back in. It's the Postgame Show here on a Monday afternoon. Jay and Elijah with you. Our good friend David Klunger coming up inside of a half hour. We'll get DC's take, not just on Saturday's game, but here at the midway point. We don't typically have guests on a Monday other than you guys, but as I mentioned earlier, I thought it was important to have David on. He had a nice reflective piece in yesterday's edition of the Post and Courier, and after reading it, I thought, you know what? I think it's the right time to have David's voice on a Monday. So
yeah, David and I talked a lot in that press box on Saturday.
About the Braves?
Yes.
There you go.
About the Braves and how great the series went against the Padres.
803-404-6100, getting your reaction as well. Steven is up next. Hey, Steven.
Hey, guys. How are y'all?
Okay.
Hey, just wanted to touch on a couple of things specific to the game, but also kind of taking more of a broad angled look at the fact that it seems like under Beamer, we're in year 4. We tend to produce a game like Saturday at least once a year. And it's not just looking ill-prepared. It's in-game decisions. It's the fake punt, forcing that early in the game. It's being down 3 scores at the beginning of the second half, having a decent drive, and then electing to try a 40-yard field goal where you would still be down 3 scores. That honestly was just as frustrating for me as the fake punt was. And just wanted to get you guys' thoughts on this being more of something that we've seen on an annual basis.
Yeah, that's a fair point, man. And that field goal attempt did make me harken back to a couple of critical points I've made about Will Muschamp in the past. But as Shane said, he was hoping to just get some points, and I get it. Because typically I would say Shane has shown us that he would be more willing, especially in that situation, to try to either continue the drive or go for the touchdown. But anyway, Elijah, you mentioned this about the Missouri game last year.
Same thing.
Yeah,
you lost 34-12. Which means you had four drives get into Missouri territory, and at some point you got to stop kicking field goals because you're not going to beat that team with field goals. What was Missouri's whole MO last year was that they're scoring on everybody, and they're putting up points on everybody. They're in a firework display, and you brought the little poppers, right, that you throw down on the ground. You're not going to match them with that. Man. They are, yeah, especially when you throw them at people's feet. Yeah. And the little kids start throwing them at your feet. Then the whole 4th of July cookout's not fun anymore. Right. But in that situation, you got to be able to go for the end zone and try for touchdowns. I didn't love the attempt at that point in time, too, because if you do end up, that's a point you do start getting a little riskier, right? Risk aversion.
Yeah.
You kind of do.
Again, their risk reward has bigger meaning. Absolutely.
Yeah, because then at that point, the crowd gets back in it, man.
You do something big. Yeah.
Yeah. Crowd starts getting back in.
And if you don't make it, well, okay. What did you?
And I think there is a message sent for that field goal that you feel more confident in Alex Herrera making that field goal than you do converting, getting in the end zone. And if you want to talk about play calling, which I think there's a fair conversation we had, not to totally blame shift onto the play calling and the offensive game plan, but look, your average depth of target in that game was under 6 yards. It's like 5.9. And there's not often many times where if you can't stretch, where an offense can't stretch the field and come away with points. You need to be able to stretch the field a little bit to keep a defense guessing. And at no point were you even able to keep a defense guessing or even attempt to keep a defense guessing. It was just, I think it was too easy for Ole Miss to be able to put you in a torture chamber. And even when you did move the ball a little bit, you ended up messing it up because of turnovers or a concoction of different things too, right? And I think the perfect microcosm of that was getting into the red zone late in the game, even though the game is still 24-3. This is the show some pride time part of the game. And Lenores throws it into double coverage, doesn't see a safety in the corner of the end zone. He comes up, picks the ball off, and bam, you give the ball right back. I think it was just a microcosm of what that entire game was offensively.
Got just about a minute left to give the final word this hour to Bob up next. Hey, Bob, good afternoon.
Hey, Jay. When you get off the air, I'm going to read the obituaries in the state newspaper to feel better. Of course, there is no state newspaper anymore. Let me paint a big picture for you, please. We found out that Ray Tanner was biting the dust a couple of days before a big game recently. Gamecock Nation has not found out the reason why he's leaving. The baseball coach, new baseball coach, said he found out about it with the press along with everybody else. There's nobody in charge now. So, big picture, where the heck do we go from here?
Oof. Wow. I'm glad you hit me with this at the end of the hour because this gives me a commercial break to try to formulate a proper answer to start.
This is you calling a timeout.
Hour number 2, Bob. Listen, he brings up a really, I think, important, and I actually had a friend of mine hit me with something similar this morning when he said the question to me this morning was who's in charge. Bob, that was a question. This was more of a statement. There is nobody in charge. That's something to think about. Give me a minute, Bob. I'll come back with more. Hour 2, plus David Cloninger coming up. Palmetto Propane is a family-owned company. They've been delivering propane to homes and businesses across the Midlands of South Carolina and beyond for more than 65 years. Expert installation, exceptional service. They have always been proud to be South Carolina's leading propane and fuel providers. So whether you need energy-efficient propane appliances for your home, reliable fuels to run your business, make sure you get in touch with the great experts at Palmetto Propane. And again, thanks for the home, too. Plus, listen, brand new gas logs, fire features outdoors. It is going to be, chilly around here soon enough. And I always recommend that you take them up on the purchase and installation of a Rinnai tankless water heater. Man, those things are awesome. They've got locations all across the Midlands, and you can find the one closest to you and get into the Hearth and Patio home store showrooms when you visit palmettopropane.com. It's 4 o'clock on a Monday. Welcome back in. Hour 2 of the Postgame Show coming at you. Herndon Chevy Studios in downtown Columbia is where we are. He is Elijah Campbell. I am Jay Phillips. Thank you for being with us. Our good friend David Cloninger will join us coming up in about 15 minutes. We've been, as you imagine, reacting. You know, I'm not going to sit here and try to be all somber, right? I mean, it is the second week of October. But that was a crappy game, man. And for those of you just tuning in or tuning in later in the hour, yours truly opened this program an hour ago with my opinion that above any other thing, that failed fake punt after your first drive just stopped everything dead in its tracks. Not a complete literal truth, obviously, but just, as I've said, it haunted you. It loomed. It cast a pall, any type of thing. I even used a you stepped in dog crap analogy, and you thought you cleaned most of it off, but just enough in one tread of one shoe when you're walking around that you just, man, and again, you stepped in it in your own backyard where you knew your dog had just been. Mm-hmm. Like, why am I even walking over here right now? And it lingers all day. And it just felt to me like that set the negative tone. Had somebody hit us on the text line, and we'll get more texts. Please hit us up, 803-404-6100, Firehouse Subs text line, saying, you know, it was the Ashford fumble after Ole Miss scored that really kind of did it in for good. Yeah, but combined the two. You know? But to me, again, there's just, as I've said a couple of times today, and you know, I'm not going to try to dwell on that play, but I can't help it. I told Elijah I'm a little OCD on this one when it comes to that play and what I think it meant for the game. But the risk-reward factor right there. I mean, what's the reward? And I know there is one. The reward is that you get a first down at your own 40 3 minutes into the game. I mean, I'm sorry, big deal. If you had said to me, would it be just as beneficial, potentially, to play field position and to pin Ole Miss deep and let the defense that had just made them go 3 and out lose 2 yards and end the drive with their quarterback on his backside and the guy that you're hating and booing on who left your program feeling frustrated at midfield, want to go do that again? Yeah, I do. I want to see the Gamecock defense out there, ears pinned back, student section screaming. Yeah. Is it better to keep the ball on offense? Sure. But if you didn't get it and you're resorting to either going for it on fourth down in a standard offensive formation or faking it, both of which run a very high risk relative to you saying to me, or do you think we should try to have your future NFL punter pin them deep and go on D again? I'm choosing B every time in the moment. If you're down a score late, okay, then the risk-reward factor changes, doesn't it? But in a scoreless game where you have had the ball once, again, big deal. Okay, yay, first down. Nah, it didn't make sense in the moment. And look, I'm not trying to pile on. Shane's got a lot of crap on his shoulders right now. And I'm not trying to pile on too much because he did you could tell, and you were in the room with him. I was not, but I have watched the press conference twice, actually. And it is easy to see the real disappointment in Shane's face when he was talking about that. In fact, can we play it? I know we've got the number. Is that number 11 on our list? Shane didn't. I mean, there were questions about it later, but he addressed it in his opening comments.
We certainly wanted to be aggressive today. That's how we coach. We talked about one of the keys for us this week was we really did feel like we had an advantage in special teams and that we had to make them play special teams. And that was a play. It wasn't so much feeling like we needed to stay on the field. It was one that we felt it was a fake punt that we've literally been working since August that we thought had a good chance to be successful. We wanted to snap the ball and get up there quick, break the huddle, get up there quick, and snap it really fast before they could get lined up. I thought, we didn't do a good enough job of conveying that because we stood up there at the line too long, kind of allowed them to dig their heels in a little bit, and they played it a little bit differently than we thought they would, particularly on the edge, and made a nice play. But that's one certainly I'd love to have back. We had momentum after the first drive that our defense had, and Ole Miss, was in a tough environment, and I gave them one there, so that's on me.
Everything he said, I get, but the last part is all that anyone will remember. Your defense had momentum. You had an energized crowd of tens of thousands of screaming fans. And as he said, it wasn't even so much, he's admitted, it really wasn't so much about like staying on the field. It's just we saw something that we thought we liked. Risk reward.
I'm really curious as to what that thing was.
I don't know.
And especially when you just see,
I don't think he knows, man. Honestly, the way it sounds like, and again, do you even call a timeout there? Or do you just take the delay of game? Like you just look over to Kai or whomever, yell into Hunter Rogers, don't snap signal. It, just something. Yeah. Just take the delay. If there's anything at all that you didn't like, that'd be fine to take the. Now, again, you don't need to call timeout. Just take the delay.
Which to me, looking at Ole Miss basically bringing out their defensive line to
they dared
rush
you.
the punter.
They dared you. And you went ahead and did it anyway.
Even if I, in my gut, was like, okay, we think we can work this. We've repped it all off season. I think we can get this to work.
Yeah. And
then they come out there, and it's not like your normal special teams formation. And they have, I don't know, just to reiterate, Jared Ivey at 6'6", 285, J.J. Pegues at 6'2", 325, and Walter Nolan at 6'3", 305. I don't think I'm feeling great about my chances of Maurice Brown finding a hole whenever your tight end is one of those, your backup tight end is one of those guys blocking. And, Colin Bryant at 6'3", 231 is also another one of those guys blocking. I mean, you're giving up, because Bryant was directly blocking Ivy. He is giving up 54 pounds. Brady Hunt was blocking J.J. Pegues. He is giving up about 60-some-odd pounds.
It just feels like you're giving up a player's worth of weight in addition to having more guys to have to block.
Like, a hat on a hat, it's one-on-one between the person behind the line of scrimmage and Maurice Brown, in theory. Right. But I don't like my chances of getting a hat on a hat really well whenever there's that much. They had so much size on that defensive line. I know it was basically 5 or 6 on 5 in terms of blocking. It felt more like 8 on 5 because those are 3 massive human beings.
And let me say for the record, too, because and those that were with me watching the game will attest to this, not that I need backup, but at first I thought they might go for it. And even then I was like, no, punt. Look at what you just did. I want that back out there. Your best opportunity right now is not with your team snapping the football offensively. Your best opportunity right now is to keep going and playing smothering defense with that crowd behind them. And again, I know Shane wants it back. I do. I think that will haunt him for a while. Like a lot of decisions we may make in life that are very fleeting and have amazingly long consequence, whatever it might be. A relationship, a bad, why did I eat that, atomic plate of wings?
I'd do it again.
I don't know what it is. But it just, again, it was just a killer. It was just a killer. John wants to talk about it. He's up next on the phone lines. Hey, John, good afternoon.
Hello. And every other time Carolina punts, they've got 3 guys in the backfield. The announcer said before the play, this is a good opportunity for Beamer ball. And we got 1 guy behind the line of scrimmage besides the punter. If that doesn't look obvious, I don't know what does.
Yeah, look, a lot of times could be, thank you for the phone call, John, a lot of times can be good opportunities for so-called Beamer ball. And I'm not going to sit here and knock Shane's special teams prowess, okay, or what he has taken from his father, what he and Pete Limbo were doing. Again, Joe DeCamillis has been doing these kind of things for 30 years in the National Football League. What they think they saw, I'm not here to argue against.
I'm curious about.
I'd like to know more of that potentially, but I'm not here to argue against it. But again,
curious.
I'm talking about the moment and what it could do. You've got to think when you call that, what if it doesn't work? You have to think that. You can't be so forward thinking as to believe it's going. I love positivity. I love optimism. And I'm here for those things. And I've said before, in relation to the previous head coach, we have seen in the 3.5 seasons that Shane's been doing this, a lot more aggressiveness, a lot more things that I think instill confidence between the ears of his players that Will did not do. So I'm here for that as well. But there are times when the best thing you can do is let that defense get back out there in this particular case. Again, with Jackson Dart's back to that student section. Maybe Jackson Dart throws an 80-yard bomb and they score a touchdown. I'll never know. Mm-hmm. And that's what again, when I say I'm kind of OCD about it, like that's what bothers me is what if you just let the normal course of action run out there and just, I don't know.
And here's the thing too, and I'm not trying to justify the decision because I think it's at that point way too early to do it. Maybe later on, if your defense is tired. Like I'm trying to put myself in a situation like say the third quarter against LSU, right? Where LSU ran 25 plays, you ran 6. That defense, as good as they are, getting gassed and gave up so many yards in that third quarter that it accounted for more than half of what LSU had for the entire game. If it's a situation like that, we're like, okay, I desperately need to keep my defense on the sideline for at least 3 more plays. Would make more sense.
And again, your risk-reward ratio is very different there.
It changes.
Absolutely.
But in that part of the game, too, there were well over 12 minutes left still on the clock when they
first quarter.
We have ran a combined
the reward,
6
Elijah,
offensive plays between both teams.
Yeah, the reward is a first down at your own 40 with 12 minutes to play in the first quarter. Like I said, yay. It's just not a big reward. No. Now, again, if you knew, like, hey, Shane, call it, because I'm telling you, you're guaranteed to score a touchdown, or you're guaranteed to get at least 30 yards out of this, or something like that. And again, you can't do that. So I told you this morning, I will be absurd to the point of saying, if you knew it, just knew it, okay. Or hey, listen, we're gonna Karate Kid all these dudes up front. Ain't no chance that they're gonna be able to penetrate this line. We'll get the first down. Whatever. Again, I'm being absurd to make a point. You've got to weigh the risk in the moment.
And maybe not marry yourself to the idea of doing it by the time you go to see the alignment. The more I look at the alignment, I'm like, man.
Take the delay.
I don't think I want to run, my up man into that brick wall.
You tried to draw him offside, something, have a hard count, blah, 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 whatever. Take the delay.
Because
let your NFL punter pin him deep.
What it tells me is that Ole Miss knew something was going to happen, or they were preparing all week for something like that to happen, to basically keep the entire defensive line out there on that play.
Come back on the other side. Again, we don't typically have guests on a Monday reaction show, but I thought today we should, and it's our good friend David Cloninger, a very thoughtful piece from D.C. in yesterday's Post and Courier about the reaction to the game. Not so much the game report, but just where the program is at this point as we hit the halfway point with this weekend's game in Tuscaloosa. D.C. joins us when the Postgame Show returns. 20 minutes after 4 o'clock here on a Monday afternoon. Welcome back into the Postgame Show. Jay Phillips, Elijah Campbell with you. And as I say, typically don't have guests on Reaction Monday during football season. But I thought it was important, based on how things went and what he wrote yesterday, to have our good friend David Cloninger on today's program. A lot of good stuff, DC, that you put in, and thank you as always for being with us. I've dwelt upon the failed fake punt as kind of the microcosm moment, and the thing that I'll remember most about this game will be that there was a lot more, though, that just didn't happen. I think I want to go first to one of the points you made about sort of the stagnation of this offense and perhaps what can be done to try and change some of that. 2 years ago, we saw Shane take over a lot of things and force Marcus Satterfield to change up a little bit. It worked. Are we anywhere similar right now, DC?
I mean, I think that the situation definitely calls for something similar, Jay. But as far as I know, none of those moves have happened right yet. Just because, and don't take yet as any kind of foreboding. I know that the staff meeting yesterday was not pleasant, and that, Shane is probably he's not a happy camper right now, and he shouldn't be, just because the offense looked like it not only didn't have a plan, it seemed incapable of putting together whatever kind of plan that they wanted to put. And, I'm not sure what you do to run offense when your line is unable to block to run between the tackles. Your tight ends, receivers, running backs cannot block on the perimeter to spring edge runs. You're still working in your quarterback, and he's not getting any help from his receivers who cannot get open. That wasn't all on Ole Miss's defense. That's a lot of, hey, you're not doing something correctly. So there's a whole lot to fix. I don't know if there's going to be any time to fix it, but these next couple of weeks, if the offense doesn't substantially improve, and maybe that works in a win, maybe it doesn't, but it needs to show something before they get to that second bye week, because I believe at that point you're going to have to make a change for change's sake.
Yeah, David, I think the most damning stat that I've been able to discover was that Lenoris was pressured on 45.5% of his dropbacks, and Ole Miss only blitzed on 25% of those dropbacks. And I feel like that you're not going to win any game when the numbers look just like that. And the offensive line, while still no one's going to accuse them of winning the Joe Moore Award at any point this year, did make some progress from the Old Dominion game to the Akron game. I feel like completely fell back down to earth. What's kind of the discussions like right now within that building of certain regressions that you're seeing on offense? Because it seems like they did take maybe a step forward throughout the year and have now completely crashed back down to square one.
Well, that is the question, isn't it, Elijah? I mean, the fact is that last year you had all of these high-ranking offensive linemen, the Great Wall of Carolina. Well, they were hurt. And, you can't do anything if you start 9 different offensive lines in your first 9 games. It just is not going to bode well. Well, fellas, they played 5 games, and they've had the same starting line in all 5 of them. The injury bug is no longer an excuse. So now, if they're not doing their jobs, you have to look and say, is it scheme? Is it coaching? Is it these guys just maybe aren't as good as they were ranked up to be? I don't know if giving somebody else a chance would be a question or would be a solution, just because they see them in practice. They know what they're going against, which is a pretty good defensive line. Now, maybe they're showing what they can do there, but it's not translating to the games. And obviously, fellas, if you don't got blocking, you don't got much else on offense.
No, and I think that's the big thing. Even there, David, I mean, you got Lonnie Teasley as the position coach, Greg Adkins in support role. We know Sean Elliott has done that before and is the run game coordinator. I mean, I don't know what you can really do. And to borrow, as I told Elijah, to borrow from our good friend Michael Haney, at this point in the college football season, you are who you are, and there are no trades to be made. So you don't want to say it's a bleak outlook, but I don't know where the change is going to come from within without just moving personnel around, right?
Exactly, Jay. There could come to a point where it's just like draw the line and say, look, this cannot happen anymore. You mentioned 2022. That line was drawn and it worked very well in the final 2 games. I'm not sure if you have the raw talent to do what you did in 2022, because back then you had Spencer Rattler, you had Josh Vann, you had Juice Wells, you had Xavier Legette, and things could work. Coming into this year, we knew the wide receiver room was going to be a question. In terms of can they catch the ball, can they get open? Well, it's been very up and down, right? You knew that, well, if you don't have Rocket Sanders running the ball, it gets real thin real quick. Well, Rocket was limited, wasn't he? So you saw what you saw. So there has to be some kind of answer. But the fact is that, listen, it's year 4. And I realize it's only year 2 with your new offensive coordinator, but you should at least have a plan, an identity to do what you want to do. And what I saw Saturday was like, what is this? I mean, I can only take so much inside zone, you know. Every time you're running up the middle on 3rd and long, like, what are you doing? And I believe it was, 1-2 passes over 20 yards downfield. They just never took a shot to try to get something to happen. So it reeked of saying, hey, you're playing it safe to try to keep Ole Miss's offense off the field. And that's a good plan to do. But you also got to score some points. And when you're already down 21 at the half, you're not going to get anywhere just trying to run the ball.
Yeah. And then a lot of people are questioning that play calling for the exact same reason that you are, is that there's really not much of an offensive identity right now. But is there even really a place to look at in terms of finding a way to get an identity this late into the season? I mean, we are 5 games into the season, and we did just come off a bye week coming into this game. I mean, is there a certain avenue that maybe you can't even start to look at?
That's the thing. I'm not sure if, especially after a bye week, when you look that unprepared, if there's anything that can be done quickly. I think there's a whole lot of stuff that has to go right. And, at the end of the day, fellas, I think that, we all knew this game was going to be tough to win no matter how good you looked. And the next 2 weeks were going to be tough to win no matter how good you looked. So you look at it and say, hey, they were supposed to lose and they lost. What's the big deal? The big deal is that they didn't look like they were ready for the challenge. And if you can't do that now, how are you going to do it when at present you're looking at a 3-4 record going into November and saying you need to win 3 of these games to get to a bowl game? And some of those games that looked really favorable, specifically Texas A&M and Vanderbilt before the year, not looking so favorable now. So how are you going to fix this? How are you going to at least look like you can fix this problem when you go to a very, very mad Alabama team this weekend?
Very mad, to say the least. David, last thing for you. We had a caller at the end of the hour make a great point. There's really no one in charge now. It isn't like Shane is the kind of personality that's going to go run roughshod over everything and blow the program up. But the point was, Ray Tanner is now basically a lame duck AD. Jeff Crane has just come in as the brand new football administrator, still kind of learning what Shane's all about. Is that problematic in any way, or do these things fix themselves?
I don't think that the solution is not going to come from the administration. Okay, Ray Tanner had a system which I agree with. He's the CEO, and you have a whole bunch of businesses, which are each of your teams, and you let the head coach figure that out. He's not going to step in unless something really, really, really goes wrong. So Shane Beamer, it starts and ends with him. He's got to figure out, it's like, can this be fixed by us all working together? Do I need to do something to make it fixed? And I know that the knee-jerk reaction for everything is like, fire him, get somebody else in there. Well, who are you going to put in? See, that's the thing that always kind of throws people off. You got to have somebody else to put into the system. So who can that be? I don't know if there is a solution right now, but the fact is that you cannot go into anywhere with that kind of offense and think that you're going to win or even come close to winning a football game.
Yeah, it's an interesting time, and as you said, and we'll talk more about it this week. You just happened to get Alabama at one of their lowest points, literally ever. So have some fun with that. Hey, appreciate you on short notice. Best to the family. We'll holler at you soon.
Sounds good, guys. Thanks for having me.
That's our good friend David Cloninger, DCP&C, to follow on Twitter. If you didn't see his kind of recap of the weekend yesterday, go check it out. Again, on Twitter, DCP&C, PostandCourier.com. More of your calls and texts. And again, there is a little breaking news around college athletics. We'll recap that for you, too. It's the Monday Postgame Show. Want to tell you about our friends right down the street at Minuteman Press in the old Apex Graphics building. Listen, back then Apex just did printing, which is fine. But Minuteman Press, which is owned locally by Ken and Anna Holloway, big Carolina supporters, does so much more to help you promote your business, especially small and medium-sized businesses, all right? Whatever you might need, from clothing to any kind of signs, banners, things that you can put in the mail, especially holiday cards this time of year, business cards for you and your staff, whatever it is. They have more than 300,000 items to help you grow and promote your business. They'll be opening up the showroom here real soon. Again, they're right down the street from us. Seriously, 2 blocks away. Not even 2 blocks away. Right here, downtown Columbia on Gervais Street. Free pickup and delivery and some experts. I mean, you can go online and see a lot of this, but if you can go in and talk to Ken and Anna, you can get a lot more done. Check them out online, MinutemanPress.com.
From the WIS Traffic Studios, I'm Elijah Campbell. A few accidents to get to that are causing some issues on the roadways, and we'll start with some water main work that is causing southbound lanes of South Lake blocked at Railroad Avenue at South Lake Drive. So find an alternate route if you can there. In Richland County, we have accidents on Clemson Road at Longtown Road, one on Decker Boulevard at Brookfield Road, another one at Farrow Road at Highway 555 near I-20, one on 77 northbound before the Killian Road exit 22, and one on Sparkleberry Lane at Two Notch Road. In Lexington County, we have accidents on Old Dunbar Road near US 321, I-26 eastbound at I-20 near exit 107B, and on 26 east at I-20 near exit 107.
Continuing to react to Carolina's very disappointing 27-3 loss at home to Mississippi on Saturday afternoon. Welcome back in. Alongside Elijah Campbell, I'm Jay Phillips. Thanks again to David Cloninger for joining us. And just retweeted DC's piece that we referenced. Go check it out with a few interesting tidbits in there. Carolina 21.5-point underdogs at Alabama. But, hey, it's going to be really early in the morning.
Well, maybe if something bad happens, it's too early for anyone to notice.
Which would be great if you were playing anybody other than Alabama, who just came off. I mean, I don't know where Tide people are going to rank that loss.
To me, that's more embarrassing than Louisiana Monroe.
Yeah, because listen, that season, it's forgivable. Anything that season was forgivable.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
and the season was over. You were lost like 5 games at that point, 4 or 5 games.
And you were under a new coach and new regime and new way of everything. I mean, anything is forgivable in year one of a new coaching regime. I mean, it hurts. It hurts. But yeah, they were 23-point favorites, right?
23 and a half point favorites going into that game. And I remember like laughing, thinking that was a little low.
Did I see right that Diego Pavia has become, and I realize it's a new era of college athletics, but he has become the first quarterback to lead his team to victory with 3 different schools as a double-digit underdog.
That's very possible.
I think that's what I heard this morning. I forget which of the college football podcasts I was listening to. And again, like I've admitted, sometimes I have them on as kind of background noise while I'm doing my own research or reading or whatever as I'm show prepping. So I sometimes miss it, and I didn't go back, but I think that's what I heard.
Dude, the thing with Diego Pavia, it's hilarious. He owns the state of Alabama because he did beat Auburn at Auburn last year in New Mexico State, and that game wasn't close. And then he beats Alabama when they're number 1 coming off a win against Georgia. This guy is basically the new governor of Alabama. Congratulations, Governor. State of Alabama. You have met your new warlord.
Governor.
He owns it.
Let's get back on the phone lines. Casey is up next. Hey, Casey, good afternoon.
Fellas, I hope you're doing well.
Doing our best, sir.
I hear that. So I'm going to start off by saying that under great pressure, diamonds are made. Okay, and I say that, and I mean that we're in a situation where Shane Beamer is under extreme pressure because that was an important game. And our young players are under extreme pressure due to that game, much like Ole Miss was. And Ole Miss on loop had to watch that game last week, and they were preached at not to make mistakes because Lane knew he's got the talent. He just has to make sure that they don't do what they did against Kentucky. And once you fix those mistakes, you can win against anybody. At the beginning of the season, that's what we thought about Carolina, and we stood toe-to-toe with the best. Now, that talent didn't magically disappear. We had a bad game. So now we have a really good game to compare to and a bad game. Now, so does also Alabama, which is going to be interesting. I believe that Alabama and Carolina will be the game of the week at the end of it with some of the most amazing plays because you have 2 pissed-off people going head-to-head and quarterbacks who really need to, correct last week.
That's a fair point, man. If they can, and listen, well, Carolina aired out, try some things. Again, at this point, risk-reward ratios become very, very different. Casey, thanks for the phone call. Brad Crawford put this out, so I'll give it to Brad. And Elijah, you've probably been studying because you go deep into the numbers too. South Carolina had 10 sacks combined in their first 2 games. They have 5 sacks combined in their last 3.
Yeah, that's the thing with edge rushers is that a lot of times you can be accounted for a little easier if you give extra help. I mean, Cade Prescorn, Ole Miss's tight end, he was a really good pass catching tight end and does a whole lot of things for that offense. I know he's in the block a lot. Yeah, he only really had 2 targets in the game. I'm not saying you're easier to game plan against,
right?
But there's like other solutions, right? You bring in help, which essentially you're taking the other team's tight end out of the passing game. And teams don't want to have to go max protection on you each time, but you can go empty backfield, do max protection, do all this type of stuff to be able to negate, sack numbers. And of course, me and you talk about it all the time. The sack number is not indicative of the amount of pressure you put on somebody.
Yeah.
Jackson Dart was still under duress for a good chunk of that game. To his credit, too, he made some throws.
Absolutely, just like Nussmeier
really
did.
well.
And we would have expected that, right?
Yeah.
And you and I have agreed, and I know a lot of you that have called in or texted in have agreed, the defense played well. I'm not going to sit here and say they're not getting as many sacks and therefore they're not doing as good a job, because I'm the biggest proponent, of it's not all about the trading card stats. That being said, that is a rather significant drop-off, and what is that attributed to primarily? I would say you just hit it. It's how you're being schemed against and what you need to do now, because you're getting ready to see a guy. Milroe had a pretty good game Saturday. I mean, Bama did score 35 points. They just happened to lose to Vanderbilt, but
never thought I'd hear that sentence.
Wasn't because of Jalen Milroe. And so if he needs to come out and do an even bigger job for his team this weekend, I expect him to take on that responsibility.
He's going to have to take off and run a little more. I think Vanderbilt did a good job of containing him in the pocket. And a couple times they've coerced him into making some really uncharacteristic mistakes. By uncharacteristic, I mean mistakes he wasn't making since his first year as a starter.
Right. No, they had him. Listen, that Bama team, I think they came out. I told you, they came out, and I'm not quite as serious about this, but it's like the third scrimmage of spring. And then realized, guess not. Because it was 23-21 Vandy.
After it was 23-7.
Yeah, and you're like, all right, now we're good.
This is where the
Here we go.
ends.
And then I wonder if they didn't go by then. Okay. And then realize, uh-oh. Which is what they did.
And here's the thing, too, about Vanderbilt. And we'll be talking about this game a lot throughout the week to kind of be like, hey, what the hell happened to lose to Vanderbilt? But they don't quit, man. And they brought in some coaches. Tim Beck, offensive coordinator not Coastal Carolina Tim Beck, different Tim Beck, who was the OC at New Mexico State. And Jerry Kill they brought on to the staff. Jerry Kill just wins wherever he goes.
Diego Pavia with him.
Diego Pavia, yep. And Jerry Kill as a coach, man, wins wherever he goes, at places where you're not supposed to win. That guy is a really good football coach, a really good leader of men and young men. And Diego Pavia is one of those kids, he's a gamer, dude. He's tough as nails. If there's so many more quarterbacks. If I'm trying to think, get a good parallel here of teams that are really close. If Penn State had a quarterback with Diego Pavia's moxie and demeanor, then they're not going over all the time against Ohio State and Michigan. Yeah, they're not. Right? Because you can't be soft playing that position. Diego Pavia is anything but soft. That guy is a gamer, right? And I would trust any team quarterbacked by Diego Pavia with 4th and 12 in the game on the line. He's just one of those kids. Yeah. And they proved it, man. That's nuts. That broke my brain on Saturday. I could not develop a coherent thought to be able to describe what I felt seeing Vanderbilt beat Alabama.
I mean, I could believe what I was watching. Let's get to Ernest real quick. Ernest, how you doing, buddy? Welcome in.
Hey, Jay. Hey, Elijah. My thing is, everybody's saying, we need to get rid of Dal Loggins, the offensive coordinator. No, because I'll give you an analogy. He's the mechanic. You got two cars. One car's not running. What do? Replace it with the other car. So why did we not put Robbie Ashford into this game if Lenore Sellers was having problems? Second point, we put Vandy on our schedule already as a win. I think we need to reevaluate because Vandy's hungry. Yeah. Vandy's hungry. And look at these two service academies out there, Air Force and Navy. They're both 5-0. What are they doing that an SEC team cannot do?
Well, Army and Navy, because Navy just thumped Air Force, and what they're doing is scoring points, Ernest. And yes, you're right. I think if you polled 100 Gamecock fans right now, 95 of them still say, we'll beat Vandy. And
no one just walks into that unfinished house and comes away with a win.
Virginia Tech has lost there, and Alabama has lost there. That's a thing, man.
Don't ask about the Georgia State game. I don't know.
It wasn't no VMI and Alabama A&M.
Those real football teams that came in to that unfinished construction site known as Vanderbilt Stadium and left with losses. Yeah.
One can be chalked up as something. Two of them?
Sounds like a trend.
Oof. And again, they pushed Mizzou to OT in Como. More phone calls coming up. Welcome back in. Postgame show rolling on. Coming up in the final hour of the program, we'll have our headlines of the day, including some pretty big news in college athletics. Nothing final, but I'll get to that for you. More from Coach Beamer, drive around the SEC. And before we get back on the phone lines, go ahead and pull the golf clap up. Go ahead. Hang on. Just have it ready. Wildcard showdown on Friday. Andre and Courtney played against Elijah and me. And for the second consecutive week, go ahead and hit it, Elijah Campbell.
Give it up. Give it up.
Wins the Wildcard showdown. Not as impressive this week as last.
Hard to be more impressive than last week.
Last week 5-0, but this week actually a rather impressive 4-1.
9-1 in the last.
We
10.
all missed
Don't let the
Michigan.
kid get hot.
Why didn't I take Washington? I went 1-4. So Elijah Campbell, after a slow start, has now pulled 3 games ahead of me against the spread. In fact, Elijah is now above 500 against the spread.
Don't let the kid get hot.
At 16-14, yours truly drops to a very disappointing 13-17. My only win was A&M, who did cover and then some.
Yeah, they did a lot.
I think Missouri forgot what time that game was or something. No, I think A&M just actually took it to them, and Missouri was like, "Oh, okay."
Or maybe the Will Lee mind games got a little into the head of Missouri, which is one of the funniest things on the planet.
I'm not sure. I don't know. I'm not so sure.
And it's a soft football team. I mean, they got punched in the mouth, and they got some adversity early when they got down 10-0 and had that big 75-yard touchdown wiped off the board because of an illegal man downfield. They quit after that.
Yeah.
They got hit in the mouth, and they quit.
But I picked the Steelers last night, and I did make it up to the end of that one since they had the 90-minute weather delay or whatever it was.
Game started almost 10 o'clock.
Yeah, that was late. Sorry. But Elijah got that one too. Cincinnati was winning. I had Cincinnati, and then Baltimore decided to score late and cover the spread by a half point.
Yeah, then Lamar Jackson happened.
And I had Georgia to cover the spread because I thought, they'll be a little angrier. And, I mean, it was a 23-point spread and 22-point spread, and they won by 18. But that's, from what I understand, mathematically, that's still not a cover.
Not covering. Nope.
Nor did I get the tiebreaker if we had needed it, which we did not. But Dak threw for 352 yards last night. I picked about half that.
Yeah, he slung it. He was slinging it around.
I picked 185, man. But congratulations, Elijah Campbell. Andre, Courtney both went 2-3. So they do not win one of our 107.5 The Game craft beer passports. But we'll do it again this Friday, and somebody will get another chance. Let's get to Scott. Final word in our second hour. Scott, good afternoon, buddy. How you doing?
Hey, the season has its weird twists and turns. It's just kind of unusual that Ole Miss gets upset right the week before they play Carolina. Now Alabama gets upset the week before they play Carolina. And it didn't seem to fare as well. I think it makes the team refocus. I think it made Ole Miss refocus. I think it's going to make Alabama refocus, which is probably not good news for us, especially the way we played. But I agree with a previous caller that Sellers was off target. All of his passes, even the ones, most of them that he completed, the guys had to reach way up in the air and make great catches. I mean, he was just not accurate. Now, I don't know. Maybe we ought to give the senior a chance. You know, freshmen are not used to playing their first year, and some do, and some do real well, but most, it's the other way around. You got your growing pains and all that stuff. But we might ought to give the senior a chance. We maybe need to open the quarterback competition back up a little bit at practice.
Yeah, I think it probably is to some degree, and thanks for the call, Scott. And I mentioned I didn't get to that when Ernest called in the last segment about why maybe we didn't see more of Robbie. And since you brought it back up, Scott, I think Shane did touch on that, Elijah, in postgame, that maybe after the fumble there were just some things that they felt differently about, or maybe Robbie was a little down on himself. I don't know what the body language read was like from the coaches. What Coach Shula or Coach Loggins would have seen, heard, etc. So I don't have a definitive answer for you on that one. But in theory, Scott, I don't disagree. And I know you, Scott, aren't calling for it, nor am I. Lenoris is still the number one. But, yeah, there were definitely – I forget – gosh, now some of them are running together, Elijah. But there was somebody open on the Carolina sideline, and Lenoris just sailed it.
Airmailed it, yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, man, that just – when he's open, you got to hit him. Mm-hmm. And he was – I forget – I'm trying to remember now. It doesn't matter. But
got it in my somewhere in my long list of notes.
But we just airmailed one. And there were, Scott, you're right. There were a few of those. And look, I don't know if some of that is just the internal clock in Lenore's head, just going a little more quickly because of what Ole Miss was able to do, or just wanting to make a play and then settling back into the games. It was a bad day, man. And we're going to talk more about it next hour. I have a lot more comments from Coach Beamer and a couple of players. Drive around the SEC, too. You're listening to a Reaction Monday postgame show. A couple of days this week, y'all. You might actually be turning on the heat, whether it's furnace, heat pump, whatever it is that you use to keep warm. Make sure that system is ready to go, not only here in the short term, but for the longer term of the fall and winter. Call 803-677-1500 and schedule a time for one of AAA Heating and Air's great technicians to come make sure everything is good to go. It's that easy. 803-677-1500 for any and all of your service and repair needs to your HVAC system. And do want to remind you as well, you can still go to myoldAir.com. And if you believe you have one of the oldest and ugliest and worst HVAC systems in the Midlands service area that AAA provides service for, you might win a brand new system. For every 100 entries, one person will get a brand new system. All the details on the website at myoldAir.com. No matter what your needs are, stay nice and comfortable with AAA Heating and Air.
From the WIS Traffic Studios, I'm Elijah Campbell. A few accidents to get to. They're causing some issues on the roadways. We'll start with an accident that's got the left lane completely blocked on 26 westbound over at Columbia Avenue near exit 91. We also have some water main work on Railroad Avenue at South Lake Drive that's causing some significant traffic backup. So the southbound lanes on South Lake Drive are completely blocked. Detour at Gibson. Richland County, we have a few accidents, one on Clemson Road at Longtown Road, another one on Decker Boulevard at Brookfield Road, another one on Farrow Road at Highway 555 near I-20, one on Gervais Street near Hughie Street, one on 26 eastbound at I-20 near exit 107B, one on Methodist Park Road at US 1, and one on Sparkleberry Lane at Two Notch Road. And lastly, we have an accident on 26 east at I-20 near exit 107B.
It is 5 o'clock news time. It's also the final hour of the Postgame Show on a Monday. Welcome back in. Alongside Elijah Campbell, I'm Jay Phillips. Obviously, our primary point of discussion today has been South Carolina's very humbling 27-3 loss to Ole Miss, a game that saw almost nothing happen in the second half. But Carolina down 24-3 at the break and just unable to get anything going offensively. I'll try to make this more of a news segment, but I will tell you that I have spent time today really not blaming the entire 60 minutes on the failed fake punt. But I have told Elijah that when I go back in the archives years from now and somebody says to me, hey, what do you remember about that Carolina Ole Miss game in October of 2024? And I'm going to say, the failed fake punt, because it set the tone, if you will, in my opinion, for the rest of the ball game. Yes, there were lots of other things, and yes, there were moments when Carolina maybe could have gotten themselves back into it, but it just, to me, more than anything, it took 90+% of the energy of the crowd out, and it never came back. And I will hold on to that. I know Shane wants it back, too. Got a couple of cuts to get to from Coach Beamer, and we'll have more from him and a couple of players in our regular 5:15 segment, too, when we talk more Gamecocks. But cut 10 first here on our list, please, Elijah. Just Shane's opening statement.
Proud of the effort of our guys. Thought there were some really good individual and team efforts. I mean, effort wasn't a question. Extremely disappointed just in the way that we played. Starts with me as the head coach. Way too many penalties, way too many self-inflicted mistakes. I have to do a better job, and know a lot of people, our players, our fans wanted this one, and for us to go out there and play like we did, just really disappointing.
And as I say, the energy in the build-up and after the first 3 and out by Ole Miss was as good as you want it to be, with the opportunity to continue to grow just a little bit. I'd say that crowd had hit about an 8.5 out of 10, maybe even an 8. But here is Shane, who, in addition to a lot of things in his opening comment before it was actually asked, Shane addressing the decision to go for the fake punt on the 4th play of the game.
We certainly wanted to be aggressive today. That's how we coach. We talked about one of the keys for us this week was we really did feel like we had an advantage in special teams, and that we had to make them play special teams. And that was a play. It wasn't so much feeling like we needed to stay on the field. It was one that we felt it was a fake punt that we've literally been working since August, that we thought had a good chance to be successful. We wanted to snap the ball and get up there quick, break the huddle, get up there quick and snap it really fast before they could get lined up. I thought, we didn't do a good enough job of conveying that because we stood up there at the line too long, kind of allowed them to dig their heels in a little bit. And they played it a little bit differently than we thought they would, particularly on the edge, and made a nice play. But, that's one certainly I'd love to have back. We had momentum after the first drive that our defense had, and Ole Miss, was in a tough environment, and I gave them one there, so that's on me.
And he's right. And as he admits in there, big mistake. Huge mistake. But you and I talked earlier, Elijah, if you as a coaching staff already noticed in the buildup a couple of things that might have either tipped Ole Miss off or simply made it harder for you, you don't need to call a timeout. You take the delay. If you want to call a timeout, call a timeout. I wouldn't like to burn a timeout that early either, but I'd rather burn a timeout than give the ball back. But just take the delay. And again, you've got Kai Kroger. Have him pin them deep. Like I said, even if the ball goes in the end zone, that's fine. And you've got that loud crowd, including the student section, behind the Ole Miss offense. It's just and again, that to me just cast the dark cloud over the rest of the game. I'm not blaming that one decision on everything that went wrong. But I just don't think he ever regained the energy. It just, it's like It's like the kid in the cafeteria at school sucking down that big square of Jell-O in one thing, Everybody had a friend who did that.
The talented one.
I mean, my buddy Mike here, Mike, you know who you are. Mike would take that thing, and the thing is, it doesn't, you don't want it to come back. It doesn't come back. It's gone. Gone. And that's what I felt like it was. Or as I mentioned earlier, I had a stepping in dog crap analogy that I made as well. And you think you get almost all of it out of your shoe. There's just that little bit in one tread that just lingers all day and reminds you that you, in your own backyard, stepped in it, even though you knew exactly where that last pile was.
You just weren't paying attention.
You weren't.
And you're like, man, if I just had a time machine, just go back 5 seconds.
5 seconds.
5 seconds.
That's all you need. Can't. And it's just there all day. All day. One more from Shane, because, again, right after that, Carolina, of course, Ole Miss went and scored, but Carolina was moving the football. But as Shane had said, really that failed fake punt seemed to, in his opinion, not cast a pall over the whole game, but certainly the first quarter. Here's more of that, plus a little bit of what they were thinking quarterback-wise.
The story of the first quarter, we were just awful in the first quarter, and that's my responsibility for us to be able to come out of the gate and play well, and we didn't in the first quarter. We had the fake punt that gave them 7 points, and then we got a nice drive going, and we fumble and give them the ball right around midfield as well. No, Robbie, we could see it on the iPads on the sideline. There was a little bit of an issue with the exchange with Rocket and him. It's no excuse. We've got to be able to handle the exchange. They got a little bit of penetration in the interior, but it's disappointing. Had a chance right there for a big play, we felt like. But, yes, that was one of the specialty plays, trying to get he and Lenoris on the field at the same time.
And, again, then it's 14, and really at that point, Ole Miss never seemed to fret. You had one opportunity. You were driving. I think it was 14-3. I got to go back in the play chart. Carolina made a first down on a 3rd and 5. I want to say it was to Josh Simon. Am I right about that?
Josh Simon was your easy button on offense.
Yeah, he was Saturday, but
as much as one.
But there was an offensive PI from Nick Harbor, and it set you back from a first down to 3rd and 20. And you had to punt on 4th and 11. And it just seemed like that was the last real opportunity to get the game close, even.
All encapsulated, too. I think at this point, it's still 17-3. I believe this is in the third quarter. You're in your own territory, and it's still, third down. You hit Jared Brown on a crossing route. And there is nothing but green grass ahead of him. He's picking up at least 15 after this catch. You're moving the chains despite a Kamar Bell holding penalty a couple plays before to really put you behind the sticks and at a disadvantage. The game is still within reach at this point. And Jared Brown, whether it's the turf monster, his own feet, I don't know what it was. Maybe the momentum from the pass from Lenoris wasn't maybe on target because it did lead him maybe a little too much, but he could not stay upright, falls about 3 yards short of the sticks. And then you have to punt again. It was just one of those things where the offense was plagued by maybe ineptitude on the offensive line with some bad luck in that case. Just any type of ineptitude the offense is completely plagued by. And you just never got it back.
You didn't. That's what I'm saying.
You never got the mojo that you needed to back. And even when you did get into the old Ole Miss territory, there's the going for the field goal, which, as one of our callers pointed out, that even if you made it, you're still down 3 scores. And you missed it, so it didn't even matter anyway.
Right.
And then there was driving the ball late in the game when, at this point, you're down 27-3. You're not winning this game, but this is the show some damn pride portion of the afternoon, and you still threw a ball in double coverage, and it got picked off. It was just that type of afternoon for the offense.
You mentioned, and again, it comes back around. You just never got it back. I think like I said, the it got taken from everybody. And you're trying to force it back in, and it just doesn't work that way. Like I say, not blaming everything on that, but man, from incredibly energetic to incredibly deflated, all in a few seconds, and then one little bit of spark comes back, and then that's gone, and it just didn't happen. Just didn't happen. And again, who knows what would have happened? I don't know. Not saying Carolina wins the game if they don't fake the punt. It's not what I'm saying. Just saying, completely flip the script. And as Shane even admitted in there, which is kind of what I think is going to bother some people, and him included, wasn't even really about staying on the field. It was just about wanting to execute something that we thought we could execute.
At that point?
Not there.
Yeah.
Not there. More Gamecocks discussion coming up in just a few minutes' time. But let's continue with our integrated media headlines of the day. Earlier today, out in California, Judge Claudia Wilkin did grant preliminary approval. Remember, this was delayed about a month when it comes to the settlements of 3 different cases, but primarily House versus NCAA, but also Hubbard and Carter versus NCAA. And they all have to do with restricting rights and name, image, likeness and things that, again, we've already known that the NCAA has quite literally for decades been breaking federal law. The NCAA agreed to pay $2.8 billion in damages. There is now going to be about a 6-month process for further objections. And without getting into a lot of the weeds of this right now, the final hearing for this will be April 7th next spring. That is coincidentally the day of the men's national basketball championship game. Athletes that are impacted by the settlement have until January 31st to file objections or to opt out. There were a couple of high-profile objections that were raised last week. Not enough at this point for Judge Wilkin to deny the preliminary approval. But again, this thing is still a long way from being over. New AP poll is out, and Texas, without playing a game, vaults back into the number 1 spot. Of course, they were only number 2. They pick up 52 first-place votes. Ohio State got the other 9. Oregon is now number 3. Penn State is number 4. Georgia, despite winning, holds steady at number 5. So a couple of 5-0 teams surpass 4-1 Georgia. I guess an 18-point win over Auburn wasn't very impressive.
2-4 Auburn.
Miami goes to 6-0. I was like, yeah. Not that I was pulling against Miami, but I'm like, all right, Cal, you're going to get yours. There you go. You got a big lead. Oh.
Game day was here, and yeah.
25-point lead blown. Ouch.
Yeah, I call that the old Atlanta Falcons.
But does this tell us something about the Miami Hurricanes?
Yeah, they're tough, man. That's a really good football
that's a pretty good team.
I mean, that's
a pretty
to
good
go
team.
on the road, and for the first time in a long time, we can say Cal was a hostile environment.
Yeah,
but
moderately.
25 point deficit, 25-point deficit, man.
You gotta. If you're Cal, you gotta win the game.
Between that and the Hail Mary that wasn't against Virginia Tech the week prior,
right.
There is some weird team of destiny feel with Miami, given these breaks that they've got.
4-score deficit, man.
But they're good, man. Cam Ward is really good.
He's good.
Xavier Restrepo is a really good wide receiver. They got some dudes on that defense too. Whenever they needed to lock up, they did. They got some lucky breaks, but you need that to win games. And look, in a couple of weeks where top teams lose all the time, a lot of them have been. Miami just still keeps winning. Interesting.
Alabama drops 6 spots to number 7. Tennessee falls 4 spots to 8 after their upset loss at Arkansas. Ole Miss is up to 9. Clemson is in the top 10, 5 spots higher after their convincing win. Maybe not dominating win, but convincing win at a pretty bad, as we now see, FSU team.
1-5.
But Cade Klubnik's playing pretty well. Iowa State and Notre Dame tied at 11. LSU is 13th. BYU 14. A&M up 10 spots after their win. But guess what? The 10 spots that A&M is up is not as many spots change as the team they beat. I'll give you that in a second. Utah is number 16. Boise, number 17. Indiana, Oklahoma, and Kansas State all tied at 459 points for 18th. And that means Missouri is 21st. The Tigers fall 12 on that one. I'll finish this up. I got to get out of here for a break, but more on this and more of your calls coming up. Sorry, turn the microphone on, Jay. When you're going to talk about people in great businesses like Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union, no better place than Palmetto Citizens to finance your next vehicle. Hunting season is here. Tailgate season is here. Gift-giving season is coming up. And for that very special somebody, maybe there's a new car in their future. Well, here's the good news. Palmetto Citizens offers the same low rates on all new to 21 models, great options for older vehicles too, and many plans come with no payments for up to 90 days. Plus, Palmetto Citizens can help you finance over 100% of the retail or purchase price on those new to 21 models. They've got a lot of other great coverage and insurance options too that dealerships simply cannot beat. So go shop those dealerships for that next ride. Then contact the great folks at Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union and truly see how much you can save. They are great to work with on these things. I can speak to that firsthand. My wife and I are members. Check them out online, palmettocitizens.org.
Yes.
Welcome back in. That's a real cut that Tyler gave us from Shane Beamer's press conference when he was asked, Coach Beamer, that is, not Tyler. Hey, did you talk with Dylan Stewart about the 2 penalties he got for mimicking automatic weapon?
Yes.
He was not happy about that.
Yes.
A lot of people weren't happy about that.
Yes.
There you go. Alongside Elijah Campbell, I'm Jay Phillips.
Yes.
All right. I just thought you'd get one more in there. How you doing?
I'm good. Shane, are you good?
Yes.
That's a lie. He's not feeling good.
Your NFL team plays tonight.
They do. I don't know how I feel about it.
Well, you should feel like they're going to lose because they're going to Kansas City.
Well, it's not like Kansas City's been beating the brakes off of people.
No, but that's how you should feel.
They got the golden horseshoe.
Call on me real quick. I have a question.
Yes, Jay Phillips.
How'd the Broncos do yesterday?
Oh, they wore some sick uniforms and played really well.
You know the story? When people ask me, real quick here, when people ask me why I'm a Bronco fan, and I've said that when I was, like 7 years old, my mom had some friends that lived in Denver, and she was out there helping the friend's husband was a doctor in the Army, and he was away. I forget where he was on planet Earth. But my mom's friend Kitty was pregnant with her third child, and Mom went to stay with Kitty when Gus was born and then help with Gus when he came back from the hospital. And that was like in the summer, I think. I can't remember exactly when. It was a long time ago. But that Christmas, Santa Claus brought me real Denver Bronco, youth uniform. Real, man. Real helmet. I had a number 7.
You had
Craig Morton. Again, it was Craig Morton because I'm old. John Elway was probably still in high school then. I had a number 53, Randy Gradishar. I had the pants with the stripes. I had the blue wristbands with the Bronco logo on them. I was a Denver Bronco, and those uniforms yesterday were the ones I got, man. I love
those. Are beautiful jerseys.
I love them. They kept them until the 90s, but I do love seeing that.
It was an appropriate rebranding, but an appropriate way to bring them back in a game against the Raiders.
Against the Raiders. Yeah, the hated Raiders. So, nice win. I don't know what it means for the team long term. You see Sean and Bo get into it?
No, I missed that.
They say it's all good. When you win, it's all good.
Sean gets testy with his quarterbacks.
A little bit.
He demands a lot.
Really, let me finish the top 25. Missouri, number 21. Pitt, 22. Pitt's 5-0, man. They should be a little higher.
Yeah, they keep winning.
Illinois, 23. Michigan drops 14 spots. That's kind of a slam. Washington's not wretched. And SMU is into the poll at number 25. SMU winning at Louisville.
Yeah.
5-1.
And made a quarterback change, and it worked pretty well.
Keith
season around
is up next as we talk Gamecocks and more. Hey, Keith, good afternoon, buddy.
Hey, guys, good afternoon. I just want to say to Elijah, good luck tonight with the Chiefs. The Saints have a chance if the Saints put their foot on the gas.
Yes.
And don't let off.
Don't settle for field goals. Get in the red zone and score bleeping touchdowns. That's all I'm asking for. That's all I'm asking.
Yeah, no, you're not beating the Chiefs if you just want 3 points every time you get the ball. What I wanted to say was I know we've had a lot of talk about Carolina this weekend and about how they play, but I do want to give credit where credit is due. The defense did do a pretty good job, and the defense has made a very big improvement from last year to this year.
Yep.
And I know them guys feel a type of way coming off of what they did Saturday, trying to keep the Carolina Gamecocks in the game and not being able to do so. So I do want to do that. But I have one question. My question is, what do you think, and what does Gamecock Nation as a whole think it would take to get Carolina to the caliber of say an Alabama or a Georgia, to where when somebody sees someone on the schedule, they don't just go, hey, it's Carolina, they're doing okay. They actually say, hey, we're going to have to fight this weekend if we want to even have a chance to get past them.
Yeah.
And I'll hang up and listen, guys. Thanks.
Okay. I agree with the defense. And we said that a bunch earlier in the show. Defense played well enough to win this football game, and you put them in a weird spot. And, again, you should have been able to put them back on the field early and let them set the tone for the game. And instead, you pulled the rug out from under them, too, in a way with that fake punt failure. Boy, Keith, in order for South Carolina, and I'm going to include Arkansas and Iowa and Utah and UCLA and schools like that in the same boat, Virginia Tech, you got to go win championships, plural. And I'll take Carolina specifically. It has been something that, as a lifelong resident of this city, as an alum of this university, as someone who has been going to games routinely since 1975 and has covered this team as a professional since 1995, it bothers me when there's, say, the 2010 win over Alabama. Oh, we're just as good as Alabama. No, you're not. No,
Alabama has sustained.
You beat them that day, and that's great. And listen, Coach Spurrier had real success against Georgia. Real success against Florida and Tennessee. Also had that bad loss at Tennessee. That was hard. Was it Pig Howard? Was that his name? Was that game?
Oh, that was the Marquez North.
Marquez North. Is that the one where he closed his eyes and just still caught the ball?
He put a hand up there, and that ball somehow found that mitten.
But that's how you do it. You have to routinely beat them. Not like 7 out of 10, but you got to split. But this school has to win championships. I mean, Nick Saban won 6 national titles. 7, whatever it was.
7 total, 6 at Alabama.
Kirby's now won the SEC and national championships. I mean, that's how. And it's easy, right? Well, that's why I say I'll put all those other schools in there too. Iowa is thought of as a much better football program than South Carolina. They hadn't won a national title, or if they did, it was when they wore leather helmets. I don't even know if Iowa has, but it's not in my lifetime.
Not one that would count.
But Iowa's been to a couple of Rose Bowls and Orange Bowls and stuff, and they'll have 10-win seasons every so often. Mm-hmm. But that's what it's going to take.
They've made plenty of time.
Steve Spurrier was making strides, and I saw the last time South Carolina started a season 4-1 was 2013, and that team finished number 4 in the country. So, and they were a legit top 5 team. That team was really good, man. Team was really good. You beat some quality programs that season. But that's what it's going to take. Sustained winning. And again, championships, plural.
Especially now. I mean, look.
Even look at Oregon, who is definitely better than South Carolina. They don't have championships yet. I mean, they might have a Pac-12 or so, but they don't have the big one.
Well, I think if you want to look to even get to a starting point, because obviously the championships, it's a pretty lofty goal, something you've never done. So how do you get even closer to that? Look what Ole Miss and Missouri did. It's an investment. There are a lot of investments, specifically in players, specifically when utilizing state law to be able to use it to your advantage, Missouri, to be able to get talent that you didn't normally get before the last couple of years. And then for Ole Miss, it's all investment. Yep. It's 1,000% financial investment from the top down to get the best coaches, to get the best players. You think Pete Golding was going to leave Alabama for just no job? Sure, his time soured there at Alabama a little bit, but I don't think Nick was going to fire him. Right. Be able to get him for a lot of money. You be able to invest all the money you got to get the players that you did. It all begins and ends with the financial investment, and you have to put in way much more than you ever thought possible to be able to even get to that first championship. And
that's one of the things that Bob brought up earlier when he called about, the lack of leadership, maybe in the short term and what that could mean. More on that, drive around the SEC, and our boy John ready to weigh in. We'll be right back. Guys not feeling like yourself, getting a little bit older, getting a little foggier in the brain, just a little slower in some of the physical activities that you're doing, and you're wondering why? Well, don't wait for it to change. Don't wait for it to go away. Go see Dr. Dan Balknight and his team at the Men's Clinic. Dan will sit down with you, a one-on-one consultation to get to know you. What are you up to every day? What are you not doing every day? And then get that treatment that gets you back to feeling like you used to, like you want to. No such thing as a one-size-fits-all treatment at the Men's Clinic. And again, don't be the guy that toughs it out and say, my dad never went to the doctor, my granddad never went to the doctor, and they were fine. Were they? Get to feeling better when you see Dan and his team, experts in healthcare for men, dedicated to making you feel like yourself again. Set up that consultation right now. Do yourself and your family a favor. 803-875-MENS. Learn more online, themensclinicsc.com.
From the WIS Traffic Studios, I'm Elijah Campbell. A few accidents to get to. They're causing some issues on the roadways, but we'll start with a water main work being done on Railroad Avenue at South Lake Drive in Lexington County. So southbound lanes of South Lake are blocked. Detour at Gibson. In Richland County, we have an accident at Fairmont Drive at Leesburg Road, one on Gervais Street near Hugh G. Street. I-26 westbound at Columbia Avenue near exit 91. I-77 northbound before the Killian Road exit 22, and on Johnson Marina Road at Highway 76. In Lexington County, we have an accident on Methodist Park Road at US 1, one on I-20 westbound at Longs Pond Road at exit 51.
It is Drive Around the SEC time on this Monday. Welcome back in. Jay and Elijah with you. Georgia over Auburn, 31-13. The Dogs go to 4-1, 2-1 in conference play. Auburn is now 2-4, winless through 3 games in the SEC. Hugh Freeze is feeling it, as a lot of coaches do at Auburn when they don't win, especially a big rivalry game. Tennessee falls shockingly to Arkansas, 19-14. UT's 2 touchdowns came in the third quarter. Other than that, just couldn't get anything going in Fayetteville. I mentioned this game to you and you didn't push back on me, but I told you like a hangover game, and you're like, well, if it's a hangover after a bye week, you're in trouble. I was like, well, maybe just more of a ho-hum, let down, not really feeling it kind of game. And I think that's what happened.
I don't know if it's they weren't feeling it. I think that's, you have a redshirt freshman starting quarterback. As good as he is, I think you were kind of waiting for that redshirt freshman type game.
Moment.
Yeah, and he had a lot of those moments. He was straight up bad. Like Nico Imaliava, with all the praise he's gotten this year, rightfully so, was equally as bad on Saturday. And they had to lean on the running game to try to bail them out, and Arkansas is much better defensively.
Arkansas is pretty good, man.
Arkansas is. And they even got a break when Taylor Green had to leave the game. Yeah. They got a break and couldn't take advantage of it. That was a game that Tennessee had to end up reverting back to that Oklahoma script to winning the game, and Arkansas wasn't going to let them do it. And
Tennessee still had a chance late.
Yeah. And
then just a kind of like Nico, you got to throw the ball to the end zone, bud.
Buddy, you have like 7 seconds on the clock. You don't have time.
He clearly just the clock just left his mind.
True.
I don't want to say he lost his mind, but I mean it's like throw the ball.
Yeah,
dude, throw the ball. No, don't run out of bounds. Throw the ball. Oh my God, the clock just expired.
The biggest difference between last year and this year for them was that Joe Milton was really bad in a lot of those type of situations, right?
Yeah.
And the difference this year is supposed to be you have a quarterback that's supposed to make a lot of those throws, and that's completes because like receivers in that offense get schemed open all the time. It's on the quarterback to hit those open receivers. Joe Milton didn't do it last year, and they had a down year. Nico, in the first several games of the year, hit those open receivers and played really well. Yeah. On Saturday night, he was atrocious in that category, and it cost him the game.
Well, again, I don't care if the guy's not open at some point, with 1 second left and you're running out of bounds. You just got to throw the ball towards a guy that has a white shirt on and hope he catches it.
Or throw it in the end zone.
It's something. Just make something happen.
Like, your stats be damned, dude.
Yeah.
Get the ball in the end zone and give your team a remote possibility.
When I saw him running out of bounds, I was looking at the clock, like, is he going to? I was like, no, he's not going to make it.
Perplexing. Yeah. Incredibly perplexing.
A&M all over Missouri, 41-10. It was 24-0 at halftime. Missouri finally got a few things going, but not really. A&M wins comfortably in College Station. Florida took care of business against UCF, as we said they just had to do. Now, they didn't score in the second half, but it was 24-3 at halftime, and Florida held on for the 24-13 victory. And, of course, the story of the weekend, not just in the SEC, but really I think in the sport of football at all levels, is Vanderbilt beating Alabama 40-35. Alabama was down 23-14 at the break. Bama did score 14 points in the third quarter, but then Vandy outscored them in the fourth, 10-7. Bama had some chances and just kept letting Vandy hang around, man.
Alabama never led in this game.
Crazy.
Vanderbilt, from beginning to end, led the football game against Alabama. I am not believing the words that are leaving my mouth right now. Alabama never took a lead against Vanderbilt in 60 minutes of football. Not once. Not for a second of the game. It was tied at 0 like every football game starts. Vanderbilt took a lead and never gave it up.
Now, I know this is the first time that Vandy had played 60 games in its history against top 5 teams in the Associated Press poll. They were 0 for 60.
And most of those games were never close.
They had not beaten Alabama in 40 years, but they have done it now. And then they marched the goalposts, like 3 miles, and then dumped it into the river.
Yep.
So they went through downtown on Broadway.
Yeah, they went down
on a Saturday night. Which had to be the most surreal and cool experience all at the same time. I imagine there were tens of thousands of people that were just in Nashville having a party on a Saturday. What is going on here? Is this a riot? Nah, it's just your future cardiologist and his buddies
carrying a goalpost. After Vanderbilt did the unthinkable, because on Broadway they have the games on those TVs all the time, right?
Yeah, but
there are people that might have gotten a notice on their phone that something happened, and then you look outside and that goalpost is coming down Broadway, getting ready to get dumped in the river.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, it is. Cool. That was wild. I can never, as someone who has covered that program and has known for my entire life how lifeless it is, because it is lifeless. Absolutely lifeless, and they are so non-competitive in the SEC and so many things that aren't baseball. For them to beat a number 1 Alabama team coming off the win they just had against Georgia was so perplexing to me. I don't get stunned speechless often, because in this industry, Jay, we have to formulate thoughts. We have to be able to give takes on these games. I had nothing to give to anybody about why Vanderbilt beat Alabama. I just got done watching the game today to go back and try to pick. I have nothing. Just completely
My wife and I were sitting in the kitchen when Vandy got the first down that was going to seal it. I said, oh my God, Vanderbilt is going to beat Alabama. I will never forget exactly. It's one of those moments. I'm watching this happen. I can't. I still, because again, when it got to 23-21, Vandy's still in the lead. I was like, okay.
This is where it gets tricky.
Now, Bama had the come to Jesus meeting at halftime, and Kalen got all up in their grill, and then nope. It's like, oh, okay. Vandy went and made it 30-21, I think it was, and then it's like, you're still letting them hang around, and they did.
Diego Pavia, man, and also
you see his tweet today.
Love it.
It said for NIL inquiries, call my agent.
Vandy, we turned.
It was awesome.
But and if you're just a lover of the game of football, man, Vanderbilt's offensive play strategy in that game was incredible. All the misdirection they used to get Alabama off sorts was remarkable. Tim Beck, the offensive coordinator, deserves all the props in the world. That guy's going to go be a head coach somewhere at a relatively lower, P4 opportunity, and is going to do wonders with it. How he has used Diego Pavia is mind-numbingly cool.
Someone is going to double his pay and make him their coordinator at a big-time school, and then get a big-time chance.
Also, at a big-time school.
There's that.
Dude, Clark Lee, think about this.
Great, man.
How are we talking about that guy in July at SEC Media Days? We were like, well, you might have 3 wins on the schedule if you pull one out. Yeah. And then,
and then they Vanderbilted and lost to Georgia State or Southern?
At Georgia State, yeah.
State.
They lost to Turner Field.
Yeah.
In a football game.
Yeah.
Georgia State. They turn around, push Missouri to double overtime.
Have you seen the new SEC shorts?
No, I have not. They were on their game.
Not telling you it's the best one ever?
But it's in contention for the best one ever is what you're telling me.
And let's just say Vandy plays a heavy role.
Oh, they should have been the entire thing. Yeah.
Well, they pretty much were. I'll just say they pretty much were. All right. We'll see how John feels. John had Gamecocks lose. John had Cowboys win. We will hear how John feels about his weekend on the other side of the break. It's the Postgame Show. Welcome back in. Final few minutes of the postgame show. Tomorrow, of course, we'll have Shane Beamer's live weekly press conference. That'll be at 1. Not so we won't have it on this show, but it'll be here on the game. And tomorrow is Brews Day, so Ryan Brewer will be here. Perhaps throwing things.
Maybe at you. That's why I'm glad I'm on this side, behind the glass.
Let's see if he agrees with my take.
This glass should be chair-proof.
Before we talk to John, do want to remind you real quick, the Lawyer Lisa Special Teams Contest is rolling right along. If Carolina gets a special teams touchdown, somebody will now win $600 because, you see, it's $100 a game. But if there's no winner, we keep adding to the pot. So, again, game 6, $600.
Can't win. Tried.
Yeah, you can't win if you don't register, so please do so at 1075thegame.com. Thanks to Lawyer Lisa, the Special Teams Contest. John is ready to go here for his regular visits on a Reaction Monday. You had a mixed weekend. How you doing?
I'm actually disappointed that the Cowboys won yesterday, Jay, because they could have made it a clean sweep for me. The Braves got eliminated. Carolina looked inept, and then the Cowboys had to just ruin it by actually winning yesterday. But
damn the winning! Why would my team win? Oh, no, I hear you.
Yeah, the one that I really honestly probably don't. I probably have kind of third on my list. But anyway, let me kind of tell you how Saturday went for me. This is pretty much a microcosm of my day. I was actually at the Gamecock Club hospitality tent the other day, and sitting there just drinking a bottle of water, watching A&M just dismantle Missouri, and Stairway to Heaven came on. And about midway through Stairway to Heaven, well before the guitar riff, somebody with the Gamecock Club comes up and does something that I think should get him locked in federal prison. He changed Stairway to Heaven and put on Margaritaville.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Nothing against Margaritaville, but, I mean, you can't cut Stairway halfway through.
Jay, it's Jimmy Buffett. He doesn't hold a candle really to anybody, let alone Led Zeppelin. Anyway, to the game itself.
Do you know who this person was? Did he get punched? Or, I mean, was everything okay?
I realized I had dropped the F-bomb well after I had said it. That was how it went. But anyway, that being said, I remember listening to Dick Vermeil's pregame speech before the Rams won the Super Bowl in '99, or I guess it would have been 2000.
Right.
And he said, the thing he emphasized at the end of his pregame speech was, guys, play smart, and we'll win this game. Well, we didn't play smart, thanks to 8 penalties for 80 yards, including the one by Dylan Stewart where he turned into Machine Gun Kelly. And then, we didn't coach smart. I agree with you 100% about you punt the ball in that situation. You're too far in your own territory, and it's way too early in the game to be making that kind of a gamble. Just why? There's no. If you want to go for it in that situation, leave the offense on the field and give it to Rocky Sanders or Oscar Attaway, who had a really good game, in my opinion. But the thing that irked me was later in the game, we're down 24-3, and then what eventually became 27-3. And we're still running just the same basic offense. We never adjusted offensively. That was what really bothered me. I go back to the week before when we were off, and I go back to what Georgia did when they were down 28-0. Kirby basically told Bobo, hey, turn them loose, let it rip. And they started just scoring left and right on explosive play after explosive play. Now, if you think that we don't have the personnel to do that, then you're crazy, because at the very least, you've got a guy that's, 6'5", and is probably the fastest man in college football? You're telling me you're not going to at least try one go route with him deep down the field? And another thing is, it's late in the game. There's like 10 minutes left in the ball game, and we're doing play-action fakes? Who are you thinking is going to bite on that? That is just what really bothered me, Jay. It just never felt like Dowell ever adjusted his game plan, and because of that, Ole Miss just teed off and just did what they thought they had to do, and they did it, and they won the game easily.
Yeah, they really did in the second half just say, we don't have to do much here. You're not going to do anything against us. I think you make a good point about Harbor. We want to see him get more involved. I feel like, and Elijah, I feel like every pass they throw to him is a crossing route.
Yeah.
Why?
He must not be able to run a good go route and get separation like you think he would.
Yeah.
I mean, I know this. It sounds like, you big man, you run straight line very fast.
Yeah, right.
No, that's not.
And Jay,
You got to be able to lose somebody.
Yes, John, you are.
Okay, it doesn't necessarily have to even be Nick Harbor. It could be anybody.
No, I get it. I get it. Yeah.
Try something that's maybe a little bit more than 15 yards.
Yeah, I don't know why they didn't. I don't know why they didn't.
That's the kind of, and one other thing, I think it was the last caller who said, "What do we have to do as a fan base?" You need to stop being the most frugal fan base in America. I mean, you remember a couple of years ago when Eric Hyman raised ticket prices, how people almost wanted to revolt? Well, I hate to break it to you, but if you want to be on the level of Alabama or Georgia, you have to do what Ole Miss and Missouri have done and open up the checkbook. Sorry to break it to you, but that's how you do it. You want to play, you've got to pay.
Well, that's probably a decently fair assessment. Thank you as always, John. I know a lot of fans don't want to hear that. I remember back then, too. Oh, they need to win first.
Man, it worked that way.
It really doesn't. But that's where my concerns come in from an administrative standpoint. There's issues that are on the horizon. And, again, right now you're seen as well below Missouri and Mississippi, not just Georgia and Alabama. See y'all tomorrow.